I got pulled into a meeting at my job where my boss brought 600 pages of my internet history.
What? Wait, what?
Yeah, I was live journaling during the workday.
All right. Hello, friends.
Hello.
And welcome to another episode of Pickles and Vodka, the mental health podcast, where we sometimes interview guests.
Sometimes. Or Lauren never does till today.
This episode is going to be so special. I'm so glad that you all are tuning in. We are recording with our very first guest since Lauren became the co-host.
Woo!
And we'll introduce her in a second. But before she comes on, we just wanted to hop on and get some housekeeping and life updates out of the way so we can just focus on her.
Exactly.
So, Lauren, where are you at?
I mean, I'll just cut to the chase of what everybody wants to know. So we are 4 days away from finding out who hides the office animals. And Friday, my boss came out. He must have found one in his office because he came out and set one down. And I'll have to take a picture of that one too, because it is the creepiest one yet. It is a hedgehog, which I already think are creepy, but with a white face.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that.
No, it looks like a freaking like crazy ghost zombie thing, and it scares the crap out of me.
I can't wait. You sent me more pictures of the animals that I'm going to post as the day draws closer. They are so cute, but yeah, some of them are a little mischievous looking.
Yeah, some are a little creepy.
Yeah, so Lauren has been having these animals turn up in her office for months, like before you got back from treatment.
Yeah, I'd say it started before me. In fact, that apparently made me a fun person to finger as who was doing
to
it.
Finger? That's what she said.
As soon as I said that, I was like, oh no, I just used an old person phrase and you're going to make fun of it because it sounds sexual.
I just knocked over several things on my desk in my amusement. But yeah, the identity of the person who's hiding the animals will be revealed this Wednesday. If you're listening on Monday when this comes out, it'll be revealed this Wednesday, the 21st, or the 20th, which is when I'm going to be out of town in Boston.
I will text you as soon as I know.
I am going to be on the edge of my seat. But aside from the animals, you told me that you were having a pretty horrible week. And so I wanted to see if you wanted to like elaborate on that, or
I kind of don't, because
that's fair.
Yeah, just because of like the people involved, and I don't want anyone, like, I don't think anyone would hear this. They would have a problem, but I don't want them to hear in the future and be like,
yeah,
why are you talking about
me? It's a good practice, like, anyway, not to talk shit on people. Not that that's what you were gonna do, but
no, I mean, it's the same way that, you know, it was just, you know, something to complain about. Like, I complain about my family because they're never going to hear this. You know, it wasn't like telling any deep dark secrets or anything like that, but this person might actually hear it, so I don't want to. Yeah.
Okay. Well, are you doing okay though? Like a little better now?
Yeah, it's mostly just a lot of frustration.
Yeah, we're no stranger to that.
Yeah.
I have been running around helping out my sister all morning. I literally drove her to patient first because she has the flu. We thought it was COVID, so I drove to her house at like 9 a.m. with a COVID test. She took it while I FaceTimed her in my car. It wasn't COVID. Yeah. And then, then I drove her to patient first. I was like, surely I'll have enough time to get back. It took 3 hours, which is like standard for patient first. But still, I was starting to sweat a little bit, and I got home and I peed, and then I jumped on my computer, and it turns out I had a little time, so I'm feeling good about that.
So I was fucking around with my earbuds, trying to figure out if I could make them work. Yeah,
we're having a little bit of trouble with our technology, but you know what? We'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, you got to work the goop.
Work with what you have.
I was trying to come up with a word. I'm like, the stuff that you don't want. So I was just like, I don't know, gunk.
We have a lot of goop. Speaking of goop, I have a fun story from yesterday that won't take too long.
Okay.
So I woke up feeling really depressed, and I drove to my parents' house to do laundry. When I got there, my sister and I were talking, and we were talking about Richmond for some reason, because I'm going to Boston and I want some new clothes, but none of the thrift stores around here are like, you know, cool enough for my taste. So I was like, I wonder where the closest Buffalo Exchange is. And we looked it up and it was in Richmond. And she was like, do you just want to go? It's 2 hours away. And so we just went, and we ended up stopping at this island in like downtown Richmond. It's called Belle Isle. You can cross it through this giant footbridge, and you get to this like island with falls. You can sit and like sunbathe. And it is so fucking beautiful. And so we forgot about the thrift store until the very end. We just spent the whole day at this island.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there by myself by the water. My sister had wandered off to take selfies or something. And I look over, I hear this splash, and I look over, and this middle-aged woman has like fallen down in the water onto her side, and she's just laying there. And it turns out she had slipped on this like goopy mud. And the reason that I know that is because when I ran over and tried to help her up, I also slipped in it and fell into the water. And so a third person came over, and they were trying to help me, and I was like, stop, there's algae, you can't stand here. And so we had to form like a human chain to get everyone out of the water. And then the rest of the day I was just walking around with like soaking wet pants and underwear.
But you were a hero.
I was a hero. I'm a fucking hero.
Hell yeah.
That's the moral of the story. But it was really fun.
The moral of the story is you can wake up depressed and end up being a hero.
Yes, precisely. And that is the spirit of Pickles and Vodka.
That's right.
But that's about all I got as far as life updates go.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to really talk about.
But Richmond is really cool, and I definitely want to move there after a year when my lease is up here. It reminded me of Austin. Have you ever been?
No, and I've always wanted to go.
Oh my God, you're a music person, so you would love it.
Well, yeah, and that reminds me, like one of my things right now, because I could actually drive there, is I just want to go on a solo trip for a few days in Nashville.
Oh, yeah, I've heard... Excuse me. I did that thing where I vape and then I start talking and I can't breathe. I've always wanted to go to Nashville. I have a cousin who lives there, and she says it's awesome. I'm not really into like country music though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that's what I've heard more from it, at least recently, is that like, even if you're not a country music person, if you're just like a music person, it's amazing. So.
Oh, totally. And that's a gross, like, over generalization. I know that if anyone's from Nashville, you're going to be like, no, there's lots of other better reasons to visit. You don't have to like country.
Right. Well, yeah, it seems like a cool city in general too. So yeah, I'd love to go there.
I know. Yeah, Richmond was just like Austin in Virginia. I felt right at home, like right away. Like there's lots of people who look like me everywhere, you know, with weird hair and tattoos, and no one looks at you twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that when you go and you just like immediately feel like, oh, this is where I belong. I felt that way when I, maybe not when I first moved to Chicago, but like some of the neighborhoods where I moved to, I was just like, these are my people. I love it here.
In the place you were before that, what do you think was keeping you from feeling like you belonged?
Well, that it was Essexville, Michigan.
Oh.
Which I feel like that should kind of be enough.
Shout out Essexville, Michigan.
Where sex is our middle name.
You and the sex jokes today. Is this going to be a thing?
No, that was just a thing for a while. I was writing city slogans.
Wait, you were writing city slogans just for fun? What other ones did you come up with?
Yeah, just like areas that I lived around, and then come up in my head. It would be like Mount Pleasant, where there is neither a mountain nor is it pleasant.
Kansas City, where it's not in Kansas, and no, I don't know.
One of them's in Kansas.
It's a city. One of them is. Isn't there a Kansas City that's not in Kansas, though?
Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri are right next to each other. But I feel like all of the Kansas City stuff that you hear about is the one in Missouri. So yeah.
I didn't know that they're like right next to each other. That complicates things.
Yes, it does. I knew that because we visited my family. My aunt and uncle had moved to Kansas, and we went to visit them once, and they were about an hour or so away from Kansas City. And so it was a big family like get together. And that was the airport that a lot of people were flying into. And so some of my family, I know, got lost because they went to the wrong Kansas City airport to pick up.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Or like doing stuff like that in the past. Like one time I took a ferry the wrong way because I like navigated to the opposite side.
Oh no.
But that, yeah, it makes me feel better to know other people do stuff like that.
I think I might have taken a ferry the wrong way too. If I didn't, I'm surprised I didn't, because my family goes to Mackinac Island a lot.
Uh-huh.
And the island, you have to get there by ferry. And the thing is, the bridge is right where the upper and lower peninsula of Michigan connect. So there's ferries that take you to one side and ferries that take you to the other.
Oh, yeah. I would see how you could get that confused.
And anyone in Michigan knows that Upper and Lower Peninsula practically think of themselves as different states. Like, so ending up in the wrong one is like, oh, I'm in a different country. Shit.
Michigan listeners, reach out.
Yeah.
I wish we could see like what states people are from, because it tells us like what countries that our listeners are from.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, before our guest gets here, we should do some housekeeping. Every single episode, Lauren, I have forgotten to ask people for ratings and reviews.
Oh.
We literally never do that. And so I wanted to get it out of the way.
Yes, except for the one I know recently where we found out that we achieved the amazing 5-star rating.
Oh, I hate to tell you, but that disappeared like the night after we talked about it.
Okay, so see, that's your goal. Guys, bring it back up. We had 5 stars for a day. We saw it. It was beautiful.
I'm starting to think that it was a glitch because, like, I look at all these podcasts that are super successful and they all have 4.9 ratings. I've never seen a podcast on Spotify or iTunes that has like a 5-star rating. And so, like, when we got it, it only lasted for like one night and then it went back to 4.9. So now I'm wondering.
Well, see, I mean, because I'm a math nerd, so I figured that we would be more likely to get that because we probably don't have nearly as many ratings. I mean, even if you're a super popular show, you're going to have like an asshat who's like, oh, I think it's a 1.
That's true. Lauren, the voice of reason on Pickles and Vodka. Yeah, so go give us a rating. Rate us 5 stars, please. If you want to go a step above and beyond, you can even leave us a review telling us, like, maybe what you like about us. Well, what you like about the podcast, not us personally.
Yeah.
Unless you want.
I mean, you can leave us messages on all of our social things as well. But reviews are cool because then other people can read them too. And either way, we're going to read them and it's going to make us feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, and the algorithm helps us out, supposedly, if we get more ratings and reviews.
That's true.
Do it now before you progress. Pause this. Go do it. I'm not guilting you. Yeah. I'm just guiding you with love.
We'll give you a minute while I see that our guest is here. And I'm going to go get her.
All right, go get her. Elevator music.
Here we are.
Here we are, the 3 of us again.
Yes.
The 4 of us. Pico just squished his way in between us.
Yeah, the 4 of us. Sorry. How could I forget the star of the podcast?
Right.
So this is our first time interviewing someone together.
Yes.
And what I normally do is ask people to introduce themselves. Okay. And so I was wondering if you wanted Lauren to introduce you as her 20-year friend. And then maybe you could add anything that she missed.
That sounds good.
No pressure, Lauren. It's just your first time ever doing this.
No, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna let her do all the personal stuff. But but basically, and you know, we've mentioned this a few times. Vikki and I met on LiveJournal. We were both screwed up little eating disorder people trying to find like minds on LiveJournal. And she had a lot of friends there when I joined, so I thought, of course, this is one of the popular cool kids, and I wanted to be her friend. And luckily, she added me back.
That would be a very different story if she didn't. We wouldn't be here.
That's true.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Not even Pico, somehow. But
I think like we found that we got along in like all sorts of ways and really had good conversations. And so when we had a chance to meet up in person, we took it. And when I was in Chicago, she didn't live that far from me. She'd come visit me sometimes.
Yes.
So, and now she's in Missouri, like the closest we've ever been. And so, yeah, it's really weird to think that we started as these like internet friends. And now I'm just like, this is just my friend. But yeah, so we have known each other for over 20 years. So we have seen each other go through a lot.
Yes. Today, I'm sure we'll be spilling all the tea. Vikki.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello. Yes, it is very good to be included in the podcast today. We have done like literally no prep work, so I'm not even sure what we're going to talk about, but I am an open book and I will talk about whatever.
Vikki, you've listened to the podcast. You know that we never have a plan. So tell us about you growing up. Like, where were you born? What was your family like? What's your like early history with mental health? I guess would be a good place to start.
All right. So I grew up in Wisconsin, kind of halfway between Madison and Milwaukee. And early on, my dad became a pastor when I was in third grade. It was kind of traumatic because up to that point we had been Lutheran and we were in the Lutheran school. So it was kind of a big deal when we got pulled out of Lutheran school to go to public school. And he became a pastor and had a lot of similarities to your upbringing in the fact that it was kind of fundamentalist Christian, take the Bible literally.
Yeah.
Lots of rules.
Yeah, we bonded on this when we met in person, and I've been dying to ask you, because I know we probably have a lot more similarities that we have yet to discover.
Yes. And so
unfortunately.
Yeah, so that kind of formed my earliest low self-esteem, just as far as like feeling like you never measure up, feeling like you're always doing something wrong, feeling like, you know, there's so many rules to follow. How can you possibly live up to all of them? And so that took a toll on me from a very early age, I would say.
Now, do you have any siblings?
I do. I grew up with an older brother and a younger brother.
Okay, so you are the only daughter, and you are
the middle child.
And you're still an older daughter. I feel like in the church, especially, like older daughters kind of get the brunt of it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say about that?
I feel like I did get indoctrinated early on with the whole, you know, growing up to be a godly woman, a Proverbs 31 woman. And it was kind of like your whole mission is to grow up to be a good wife for a godly man.
Yeah.
And it's quite a pigeonhole.
Yeah. So. I mean, Lauren, do you have anything you want to add? I feel like I'm just asking all the questions.
No, I realized I was like, I'm kind of sitting on the sidelines listening to this because I feel like your religious upbringings, it sounds like, are similar. And, you know, you're like Vikki just cited a scripture and
Proverbs 31. I got triggered when she said that.
I'm so sorry. You know exactly what I mean.
Yeah, where on my side, I was like, no, I feel like in Catholicism, you pretty much, at least in my experience, you pretty much just grow up where it's just like, love God, love Jesus, love God, love Jesus, don't have sex. Don't
See, that would be that would be so much more simple. Still fucked up,
you
but like
think. But it's also everything is your fault and you're guilty.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So, Vikki, did you feel like that growing up? Like everything was your fault, like guilty all the time? I can imagine it kind of progressed.
Yeah. I mean, there's that verse that says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And I felt like that was...
Oh my God. No wonder.
That was literally me. I could have worn a t-shirt that just says falling short in every way imaginable.
Oh my God. It's so funny. Very brief tangent. I'm trying to do more writing and I'm trying to enter a submission, and the theme is, what does it mean to be human? And the thing I decided to write about is how growing up, humanity was basically like the worst. Like humans are sinners and they're falling short and we need God to rescue us and like all this stuff. And so at my core, as a human, I feel deeply flawed. Like no matter what I do, no matter how much I change, like I'm still always going to be human.
We are just dust and we will return to dust. Yes.
Oh my God. My password for many years was dust to dust.
I think that still is on something that we shared. I remember seeing that.
Yeah. Oh God, that's embarrassing. Okay, anyway, continue. Your early childhood teen years.
Yes. So just that low self-esteem, that feeling of never measuring up, just having a hard time fitting in with my peers at school, didn't want to be too churchy, but yet that was kind of what was expected of me. And yeah, it was rough. And actually, so that period of time when we went from being Lutheran to suddenly being charismatic, that was actually when I had been a normal weight my childhood until third grade. And then I just started ballooning. And there's got to be a connection.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then you add into, with that low self-esteem, suddenly I'm like the fat girl in class. And, you know, all the teasing that comes along with that. And it was really rough. I remember 7th grade in science class, we had this exercise we had to do of, I guess it was like calculating gravity or something like that.
Oh,
and,
no.
Oh, God.
And so for the worksheet, you had to put your weight on there. And and I remember by 7th grade, I was over 200 pounds. And it was like mortifying.
I am so sorry you had to go through that. I'm curious. I have so many questions because you went to Christian school when your dad was Lutheran, or when your family was Lutheran, rather.
Yeah.
And then you said you went to public school, but at the same time, your family was becoming like more kind of in that fringe group of Christianity.
Yes.
I was raised Presbyterian. My family's Presbyterian. I'm not, but like then I went to a charismatic Christian college. So I've also experienced like both sides.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering what that was like in your personal life, all those changes, and then like being in public school, because that like that's just a breeding ground for like bullying and like just new worldviews that maybe you were exposed to them, maybe you weren't. I don't know. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really rough. And I mean, I was not someone who was confident in myself or who I was as a person. And so I was like a chameleon. You know, if I was hanging out with friends from church, I was churchy. If I was hanging out with public school kids, I was a completely different person.
Survival.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know you've made some allusions to it. Sounds like there were some wild years in your college years. Was that kind of a chance to like not have to be so religious and perfect?
Well, so along with not really knowing who I was or having a good sense of self, I had a good friend in high school. So for high school, I was in public school through my junior year. And I had started getting into a lot of trouble with my friends. And my parents pulled me out of public school. I went to a small Christian school for just my senior year.
Me too. It was just my senior year.
It was really rough because some of those kids had been together since like kindergarten.
Yeah.
To try and break into that was almost impossible. But I had a friend who was a junior when I was a senior. And I actually took a year off, partially because I was only 17 when I graduated and my parents didn't want me going away at that age. But partially, I just didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life. And so this friend who had been a junior when I was a senior, she was going to a Bible college. And I ended up applying to the same Bible college because I didn't know what else to do. And that's where I went for my first year, and I was politely asked not to come back.
Okay, you need to tell that story now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, when I got away from home is when I just kind of went a little bit nuts. I was smoking, I was drinking, and of course, all of those things were against the rules of that college. And
did you have to sign an honor code?
I did, yeah.
Lauren, artists probably like, what the fuck is that?
Just like, okay.
Yeah, so I was on probation after being there for just a couple of months because I got caught smoking. And it just was not a good fit for me. And then a friend that I had made there who was also kind of on the wild side, we had decided to transfer to a Minnesota state school. And that's when the real craziness came about because then everyone was drinking, smoking.
They don't care if you're drinking.
No, there was no honor code there.
Yeah, if you don't, then it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that was kind of a rough time too because, you know, I'm 8 hours away from my family and, you know, they're asking, oh, what are you up to? What are your plans for the weekend? And like it all had to be lies. I couldn't tell them what I was really up to. In their mind, I was still, you know, good Vikki. And so I had to keep up that act for them while living a completely different life.
I still can't tell my parents what I'm up to.
I was going to say that. Vikki, what was your relationship with your parents at that time?
So my dad and I have always been super, super close. Like he was my hero. He was everything to me. And we have always had an amazing relationship. My mom and I, completely different story because she, I think she saw some of my struggles and she wanted to help, but her way of helping was usually not very helpful, unfortunately. And she and I butted heads constantly. After I got through college and was out on my own, she became, like my best friend. And we got through those rocky years. But yeah, for a while there, it was really rough. And both of them have passed on. And I do have a lot of regrets about, those years that my mom and our relationship was so strained. But we did definitely become closer later in life.
That's good.
Yes. Going back to the mental health aspect of things, I had started gaining weight during my childhood. My mom took me to Weight Watchers meetings every week.
Oh, no.
We did the Nutrisystem meals together. We did the weekly weigh-ins on Saturdays, and I would get money if I had lost weight.
So why do you have an eating disorder, Vikki?
Exactly.
Shocking, isn't it?
Or why did you get one, I should say. I don't know where you're at now. We'll get there.
One of the friends I had made at Bible college, she and I became friends with a girl who was bulimic. And she and I were both quite overweight. And this was like the answer to all of our prayers. And we both immediately just got sucked into a life of binging and purging. And my freshman year in college, I think I lost about 120 pounds that year.
Fuck.
Yeah.
That's like super dangerous. I mean, hot take.
Yeah, hot take.
Yes. And so that first break when I came home from college, my parents were like,
oh yeah, you had to shock them.
They were shocked. Just from when I went away in August to when I came back at Thanksgiving, I had lost a lot of weight. So it was quite a big deal. But the thing was, obviously, I, couldn't tell them what I was going through or how I was losing the weight. And that was the start of bulimia for me.
But yeah, and I don't know about you, but I know me, like people telling me these things or discovering these behaviors, and it's like, this is the answer and this is going to do it. Mm-hmm. I figured it out in like my late teens and 20s. And I even remember telling myself, it's just like, it's not like I'll be doing this when I'm 30. Huh. You just think, you just think you're like invincible still.
Yeah. And what was quite interesting is, the friend who I kind of became bulimic with, and we were, bulimia buddies, she was able to just kind of leave it behind when she left college. And for me, it was then decades of in and out of the hospital and up and down in weight and very poor health. And it was life-changing.
Well, before you continue, I have a couple questions. When your parents reacted, how did that make you feel?
I was prepared for their reaction. And honestly, it just triggered me to want to lose more weight. It was like, oh, if they think this is shocking, just wait till they see me at summer break. And it just kind of spurred me to double down on what I was doing.
So it wasn't even a hiding so much as you really had a kind of like, I'll show you. About it.
Yeah, I kind of did. The weight loss was obvious, but, the methods I was using to get there was a huge secret.
Yeah, well, speaking of secrets, the other question I had has to do with your bulimia buddy.
Yes.
Because for most of us, at least for myself and I know Lauren, like our whole relationship with eating disorders has been very secretive. Like when we have told people, it's been in like treatment settings. Like I personally didn't have a friend who is also bulimic until like I had been bulimic for 7 years. And even then, like we never really engaged in behaviors together. So I'm wondering, like, what was that like? Like, what did that friendship look like? Would you say it was healthy or unhealthy? Probably both.
Yeah, like I never had somebody who was, I guess, like a friend doing the same thing, but kind of in like a confidant sort of way. Yeah, by the time, as Christina said, when I was willing to share it with people, it was both of us saying like, this really sucks and we want out of this life.
Yeah, like you both want out of it. But what's it like when you're both like in it?
In some ways, it was a very unhealthy relationship. But in another way, I still to this day consider her my closest friend in the world because we went through so much together. And it really was like, you and me against the world.
I can see that.
I'm glad that she was able to leave it behind for the most part, right? Like, did she ever struggle later, like maybe not outwardly, but did you ever talk about it again with her?
We've talked about it, and there were times when I was going away to treatment and I could just tell, I can't remember now if she actually said it, but there just seemed to be sort of a envy that, I was getting help and she wasn't. I think she was still struggling with all of the mental aspects of an eating disorder, but not acting out on it. And so I think the fact that I was, getting treatment for it sometimes was a kind of a jealousy thing.
That makes total sense to me. Like, I felt like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely when, I feel like when you're not acting on the behaviors anymore, but you have all of the mental aspects still going in your brain, that can almost be harder because nobody can see it anymore. Yeah. Evidence to that this past month.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that's most of us in recovery, right? Like, I feel like it doesn't ever really, really go away completely. So that just makes me really sad to hear about, but it's kind of comforting because it's like, yeah, there's so many more of us than we think.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's something that's something that I was hoping we would talk about. You've reminded me, and we're jumping all around. Because I'm thinking more like recently, and especially if people have heard some of the voicemails you've left in the past, then, like now you have left it behind, but it sounds like mostly. I mean, you've had some really good voicemails, like some really good thoughts on it, where it's kind of like, I don't know. It seems like you're just kind of like, did I just sort of let life happen and it's not here because I'm not letting myself think about it? Like, could it come back that easily?
Yeah, I mean, I went through so much treatment in my 20s and early 30s, outpatient mainly, seeing a therapist. There was a time I was on like 6 or 7 different psych meds, and it wasn't until I had Medicare, I went on disability, that I finally had insurance that would cover residential. And it was going away to residential that kind of turned things around for me. So I'll always be very thankful that I had that opportunity. It wasn't a magic, quick fix or anything, but it definitely made a difference. And I don't know. I don't know if someone were to ask me like what turned things around. I don't know. I literally don't know. But I do know that I worked to be able to get back to working and have some semblance of a life. And just as kind of life moved on and I tried to be focused on like, hey, I want to be normal. I want to have
Don't we all?
I want to have a job and I want to have a family and I want to do things with my life. And, this eating disorder is no longer serving me in any positive way whatsoever. And it was just like clawing your way back up a hill.
Totally. And you've done so much fucking work. Like, even if you're like, I don't know how this happened, I think I do know how it happened. It's because you've been consistently like putting in the work. And I think like this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think sometimes like the most successful I've been with recovery has been when I wasn't thinking about my eating disorder as much. Like when I was doing other things, like you were saying. Because, like, I've been in really rigorous recovery programs with lots of accountability and lots of processing and everything, and that is great. But at a certain point, at least for me, I became obsessed with my eating disorder, like, in another way. I was still thinking about it 24/7, even if it was quote-unquote recovery. I was still completely in the world of my eating disorder, and it wasn't until I, like, started making friends and doing stuff that didn't have anything to do with that I started getting better. And that's what I'm trying to do now. It's really hard.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for filling your life with so many good things that there's not really room for the eating disorder anymore. And I do remember being in treatment where they're like stressing to you, there's so much more to life. Fill your life with hobbies and friends and, self-care. And, your whole world shouldn't revolve around food and the eating disorder. And then you're in treatment, though, and literally your whole world is revolving around food.
Yes.
Like, when's the next meal? How many snacks do I have to have? So it's kind of a disconnect there.
And that is needed, like at first at least. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you don't need any of that stuff, but yeah, at a certain point, you just gotta get out there and think about other things. And no one wants to hear that. Like, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I remember I had a therapist who had said, I think I was kind of bouncing in and out of the hospital at that point. I did not have insurance that would cover residential, so it was just these like week or 10-day stays just to get physically a little bit healthier and stable and have a break, you know, like interrupting my symptoms and have that break. And I had a therapist who said, you know, the real work is done outside of the hospital. And I remember thinking, like, that's a bitchy thing to say.
How much worse can it get? How much more work am I supposed to do?
Yeah, but I mean, she was right. The real work is when it's just you trying to live your life and having to, you know, plan your meals so that you're not skipping them and having to be accountable for yourself. Like, that is the real work.
I mean, Lauren, you're there right now.
And yeah, that's what I was thinking is I feel like that's something that this past time and probably the time before, like a few years ago when I was last in treatment, both of those times, I mean, I feel more positive about it in the end because I knew that I was ready to be done. I was ready to get out. I was just like, this is boring. I do not want to think about this every day. Please let me have something else going on in my life. Can I be done? Where I compare that to like the first time I was in treatment where I'm like, I probably left there, you know, just like, well, see you guys in a few months, I'm sure. So,
well,
I didn't.
And Vikki, you have often talked about feeling nostalgic about treatment.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that eventually, but I want to ask how old you were when you went for the first time or when you had your first like treatment experience.
I believe it was in 2002, and I went into a hospital-based program. I think I was there for about a month. And that was the point where I kind of had to let my parents into what was going on with me because I needed someone to take care of my pets. And my dad was my ride to the hospital. So, yeah, that was 2002. And it's kind of interesting because that was just after I had started writing on LiveJournal. So when you look back at my LiveJournal going back that far, that is basically a chronicle of in and out of the hospital.
Oh, wow. Then I don't remember that one because I remember like later times.
Yeah.
When we'd known each other for a while.
You must not have been friends with Lauren then. It's fine.
Maybe I was trying to be friends with that cool person with all the other friends still.
So what was that like for you the first time? Like what was going through your head?
It was very crazy. Now, at that point, I had lost a lot of weight from, you know, my highest weight, but I was still above a healthy weight for my height. And so I went through that typical, oh my God, I cannot be, you know, on a floor with patients with anorexia because I'm a walking, talking trigger, you know, like they don't want to look at my fatness. And it was really difficult. And I faced that every single time I went in for treatment, you know, especially if it was an eating disorder specific place. I was in Rogers in Wisconsin as an inpatient for quite a while, and I had a feeding tube while I was there, and I was well over 300 pounds at that point. And so just to have that just total disconnect of reality of like, what is even going on here? You know, like how can I need a feeding tube at this weight? But obviously it was necessary.
Yeah. I mean, it's such bullshit. Like, we need to say it as much as possible that like your weight is not an indicator of the severity of your eating disorder. Like people of all sizes get eating disorders, and like, yeah, the ones who look more normal or quote unquote overweight are the ones that often struggle silently or are overlooked by medical professionals.
Exactly, because the danger is less in like what your specific weight is at the time versus like whether the end result is you are underweight or overweight. You're person,
sick.
Yeah, and either person of those people who have, you know, like dropped pounds from throwing up every meal, of course they need a feeding tube because they haven't given themselves any nutrition for it.
It's so fucked up.
I mean, my weight cycled wildly from lows to highs, and there was a certain point that I had tried to cut down on the purging, but I was still binging, and I was definitely still emotionally eating. And when I got to my highest weight ever, I mean, I was physically very, very unhealthy. I had type 2 diabetes, and I had high blood pressure, and I needed to do something drastic. And so I looked into having gastric bypass surgery, which, of course, you know, they are very hyper aware of, like, okay, do you have any history of eating disorder? And if so,
or they're supposed to be.
Yes. I had to go through a longer than normal period of like the pre-op process, and had to basically, you know, swear on my life I was no longer engaging in any eating disorder behaviors. So that was really difficult. And, you know, when I had the surgery and I had a stomach the size of an egg and had to completely revolutionize, you know, the way I ate and how much I ate, I had not left the eating disorder behind at that point. I had fooled everybody. And it was actually quite a dangerous situation because I did binge and purge after having the surgery.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
To be fair, she hadn't fooled everyone. I believe there were me and a handful of other close LiveJournal friends who none of us
Like,
thought
what the hell are you
thought that
doing?
this was a good idea from day one. And I remember, several days just thinking like, oh my God, I hope this goes okay. I know you're not over it.
Yeah. I mean, I will never regret having the surgery because I felt like at the time, you know, it was what I needed, and it did help me shed a lot of weight that needed to go. But the mindset just was still 100% eating disordered at that point.
Yeah. I'm so fascinated by this because I've never heard of, I mean, I know it's a thing that people who get that surgery have eating disorders, but I just don't know anything about it. And like when you were describing that, I felt terror. Like, because I would absolutely do the same exact thing, even if I knew it would kill me. And so
just lie whatever is necessary to get to your end point, and consequences be damned. Yeah.
So wait, so when was that in relation? I'm trying to establish a timeline. When was the first time you went to residential after getting Medicaid? And then how long after that did you get the surgery?
So I actually went to residential within the same year of having the surgery.
After, right?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay, tell us about that.
So that was literally crazy because as treatment centers go, they are, you know, they have to be prepared for everything dietary wise, you know, people who are gluten-free, people who are vegan. They were not prepared for someone who just literally did not have the stomach capacity to hold a normal amount of food. So it was really difficult at first for them to realize, like, hey, she's not being stubborn and refusing to finish her meal. She literally cannot physically finish her meal.
Yeah, how did they even handle that?
I think for them it was actually a lot of trial and error, but you know, they handled it well, and they did try to be flexible for me. So it was a good experience for me, but it did get off to a pretty rocky start.
I can imagine that you had to do a lot of self-advocating, which is really unfortunate that people in treatment should even have to be put in that position, but it happens a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to not finish a meal and then be given, you know, a huge can of Boost and be like, I'm literally going to explode and this is not going to end well.
This physically does not fit in my stomach right now.
Lawsuits on your hands.
Yeah. Yeah, but that treatment experience was amazing in so many ways. Just, you know, getting away and having that like round the clock support, and just really digging into some of the things behind the eating disorder. And there were a lot of like oddities too that you don't get everywhere. I mean, we did yoga and we had acupuncture and massage. And so, I mean, there were kind of like some spa-like aspects
Where was this?
to it. So yeah, I mean, it was a really good experience for me. And I mean, that was my last hospitalization. There may have been one more, just like going into the hospital.
Like a psych stay.
Yeah, but as far as eating disorder treatment goes, that was it for me.
And what year was that?
That was 2012.
Amazing. It's been 11 years.
Yeah, and that just seems really, really crazy to me. It's so far in the past.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
I know what she's doing.
God damn it. Okay, that's obnoxious. Yeah, congrats. That's a huge fucking deal. But with that said, I know it hasn't been easy. So in the last 11 years, like, what has your mental health journey looked like?
I think when I did kind of move past the behaviors being all-encompassing was really when, the mental work was the focus, and just, why do I feel so shitty about myself, and what would it take to feel like I'm a halfway decent human being? And then can I just embrace that I'm not this disgusting, horrid excuse for a human being, but I'm a person who deserves better things. And I mean, that was a big thing to work through.
I'm wondering, because I can think of something specifically, but I'm not going to lead you to it. I'm going to let you say it if you want. Like, as that was going away, did you find yourself kind of like filling that with something else? I mean, like something unrelated. Like I'm thinking of someone, maybe that's like, oh, I'm getting past the eating disorder stuff, but now I'm having a bit of a shopping problem or something like that. Just wonder if you felt like that.
I do feel like there were certain things that sort of took the place of the eating disorder and just not really being on an even keel. I mean, I was dyeing my hair different colors basically on a weekly basis and pierced everything that could be pierced, and, was getting a little bit too much into drinking to cope with things. And spending was a little out of control at some points as well, which when you're on disability and barely making anything is not really the wisest thing to do.
Yeah. I sense a lot of like self-hatred going on with you at that time. And, I can tell listening to you talk that that's something that you've struggled with / maybe continue to struggle with at times. And so like that is obviously the thing that's the hardest to get past, like, because that's where everything else stems from. So like, how do you even begin to get into that?
I think looking back on my LiveJournal days, I started in 2001 and, became friends with different journalers, in the eating disorder communities. And I did kind of quickly start gaining like a following of people reading my journal, and I tried to keep it, light and funny and tell funny stories and post funny pictures. But also just like, I was an open book about letting people see what my, life was like and what the eating disorder was like. And, I would go on these crazy long fasts and, boast about it. And
we all did then.
Yeah. But the thing with LiveJournal is I did have a full-time job at that point, and I was so sucked into LJ, and, I just fed off of like the positive feedback of people commenting and, calling me amazing and, oh, you're so funny and, oh, you're my favorite LiveJournaler. I got pulled into a meeting at my job where my boss brought 600 pages of my internet history.
What? Wait, what?
Yeah. I was live journaling during the workday. I was so addicted to it because even after that, you would have thought I would never have gone on LJ during work, and I still did. I was still like sneaking on it. And that just really goes to show you, like, that was the one area of my life that I was getting such, positive feedback and, encouragement to keep doing what I was doing. And I needed that. I needed that so much because I had no sense of feeling like a worthwhile person unless someone was constantly telling me.
Yeah. I mean, internet friendships are amazing. Like, we talk about it on here all the time. And I think there's something to be said for discovering that community where you feel like you don't have to put up a front, like you can be yourself and be loved for your genuine self. And like, obviously, Lauren and I met on a similar community, and like a lot of the guests on this podcast have been found through similar communities. And so like everything you're saying just resonates so strongly.
Mm-hmm. There was always such a drama surrounding, we all had eating disorders. We all struggled. Yeah. And then someone would go away to treatment and they would like unfriend everybody or say like, I can no longer sit by and watch you destroy yourself. And this could be someone who had been your friend for like 10 years. And then you get a message like that. It's so crazy.
Yeah. They'd come back all sanctimonious about it. And it's kind of like it hurt, but at the same time, you don't want to tell them like, no, come back and damage yourself, please, so that we can be the same.
Now, Vikki, did you ever take a break like that?
I don't think I did. I honestly, and maybe this was naive of me, but I don't think that what I was reading as far as what other people were going through, I don't think that it had an effect on me to keep me in the eating disorder when I was ready to be recovering. So I feel like I was strong enough to be able to read, someone who's doing a long fast or someone who's, binging and purging multiple times a day, and I could let it not affect me. So I never really did the whole, I'm doing a big friends cut and unless you're in recovery, you're all gone.
I felt the same way as you, that I never, felt like, even to this day, I think I've said that where I'm just like, I don't really get triggered by other people, at least not the same way I get triggered by myself, who I can't ignore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I don't think Vikki really did this so much, but I know something that I would do is I feel like the opposite, and it's maybe being like people pleasing and being, it's going to be like a sword to the heart, like if somebody isn't going to be my friend anymore. So I was one of the ones, and this was a popular LiveJournal thing, who would go and start a second journal or a third journal or something like that.
It's your secret journal where you could be more yourself.
Exactly. It'd be the secret one because it's where it's like, I don't want all these people to drop me because I know that I'm struggling, so I'll just take around the friends that know and I'll let them know.
It's just Finstagram before there was Finstagram.
Exactly. I'm like, I probably have started like 5 live journals.
I want to talk about this more because like it's so relatable. First of all, I want to say, like, no judgment. Like, if you do have to put boundaries up between, like, those kind of friends, if it's right for you, absolutely do it. Like, I've had to do it. The community where Lauren and I met, Peach, I'm not on it anymore because it was triggering me, or it was making me really sad. And also, it was giving me kind of a sense of FOMO, like, missing out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've talked about this in the past, too. I mean, I've had friends who have, like, cut me out, like, just like close friends. It always sucks. Of course it does. But I have like, at least in more recent times, I've totally understood. I'm just like, I don't want you to do something bad for you.
Yeah. But Vikki, it was really to have LiveJournal. Like for you, it was healthy.
Putting aside the fact that it almost cost me a job and
oh yeah. Except for that little detail.
And the whole internet addiction thing, the relationships that I made were so good for me. And, over the years, I've probably met 15 or 20 or more LiveJournal friends who have become real friends. And, there's something to be said for that kind of openness of sharing your life with, a group of people that know each other on a deeper level.
Totally.
I miss LiveJournal.
Yeah.
Me too. And I didn't even write on it. I just followed a bunch of people on it. I actually discovered self-harm on LiveJournal, so I have a whole different story. But yeah, it's a very mixed thing for me as well. Because, on one hand, it's like, I probably would have discovered it somewhere else,
Yeah, I don't think you would be like here today, just like, what? What is this self-harm thing?
Yeah. We need to stay focused though.
True.
So we have about 15 minutes left. And I'm wondering like if you wanted to talk about where you are now and like what helps you now. Because I know it's a constant struggle, and the fact that you are doing better and you have a lot of good things in your life doesn't diminish that struggle.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I definitely would say it really is about filling your life with other things and not having the eating disorder be your total focus. And, you just kind of work at moving past it, and it's not easy. I mean, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but there's no going back for me. I mean, I know that I don't take my recovery for granted, and I know that just as I've gotten sucked in before, there's always the chance of getting, sucked back in. And so it's something that you have to be vigilant about, that's for sure. But, you know, to go from being on disability and not being able to hold a job, and I spent a year and a half just sleeping on a couch. I had a 2-bedroom house, and I literally never used either of the bedrooms. I slept on a couch. I would wake up in the morning and roll over and face the TV and turn it on. And then at the end of the day, turn off the TV and roll back over and sleep there. And like my whole life was that couch. And I mean, that was like the lowest of the low point. I was barely alive at that point. And to go from that to working full time and having a family and, you know, just taking care of what needs to be taken care of. It's been a big process to get there, and it's not something I take for granted.
No, I mean, nor should you. Like, we're all susceptible, like, no matter how far along we are in our recovery. And the fact that you know that and you are vigilant, it just speaks to the quality of your recovery, I think. Yeah. Like, the people who are strongest in recovery to me are the ones who are not certain. They're like, how the fuck did I end up here? I don't know. I'm just doing the best I can every day, and tomorrow's another day. I'll figure that out then, you know? But
on the other hand, it is very, very frustrating because as someone who had struggled so badly in the past and was looking for a way out and a magic answer, I wish I could give it to somebody and be like, this is what helped. Please try this. You'll never regret it. And I can't. I don't have something I can look back on and say, this was the turning point, or this is what helped me when nothing else did. And I really wish I could.
Well, and also, life doesn't get better. Like, one of my favorite voicemails that you sent in, you were talking about the mundaneness of, like, regular life and how it's just boring. And I wanted you to talk more about that because I think a lot of people can relate, and, like, what keeps you sticking with recovery. I know you talked about your family, but, like, are there ways that you have learned to love yourself now and that see value in yourself that you want to share? That puts pressure to say something inspirational. There's no pressure ever to do that. Just be real.
I think what I finally realized, and this might make no sense at all, is like what you're feeling inside in some ways, it doesn't matter. Like, your feelings could be so far away from reality. Your feelings can be so skewed by other things you've gone through and, you know, by your own opinion of yourself, that I think a huge thing is just being like, you know what? I do feel like shit. I do feel like I'm not as, you know, worthy as other people. So what? Move on and just live your life, because, you know, maybe you can learn to feel better about yourself. Maybe you can't, but, you know, it's not something that you should let form the basis of your life.
You just, like,
That's
completely
beautiful.
described my tattoo on my leg. I have a song lyric on my leg that says, sure, it all matters, but in such an unimportant way. That's exactly what I think of that lyric, is everything that Vikki just said.
I think just coming to a realization of, like, you're in therapy, you're going to groups, you're doing this self-help work, and, you know, maybe you're on meds, you're trying to follow a meal plan, whatever it may be. And it's all in this elusive chase to be normal. But, like, you have no idea what normal is or what
normal doesn't exist.
Yeah, you don't, you live in your own head and you do not have any concept of what someone else's thought life is or what living in their head is like, you know? I mean, some people keep a running commentary and their brain is never quiet. Some people may have total silence. Some people may have the Indiana Jones song always in the background. Like, you don't know what normal is for somebody else. So how do you know when you finally get it? There is no normal.
Yeah, you just got to do what you got to do to get by.
That is so good. You're really good at this.
Thank you. No, but as far as holding on to recovery and just kind of trying to, you know, keep a hold of it, but not make it the main focus of your life, there's a balance there for sure. And there's definitely something to be said for, I frequently feel like maybe this is just an act. maybe the real me was the sick me, and I've just like stuffed it all down so far, and I've got myself married and working full time and busy, and I don't have time to realize how bad things are on the inside. And I don't know. I don't really know what the truth is, but I do know that I feel confident that I can face whatever life throws at me. And that's a huge thing.
Hell yeah.
It almost doesn't matter then what the truth is versus, you're clearly able to do both ways. Which one would you rather be doing?
Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's not a binary, right? Like everyone has a little bit of quote unquote sickness in them. And like, I don't think the solution is necessarily to stifle it or get rid of it. It's just like realizing that that's part of you and using it to make sure you don't get back, maybe. Like, I'm not proud of my past, but I treasure it. Like, I hold on to it because I know I don't want to forget how bad it got. I don't want to forget what I'm capable of. And also, like, it's an incredible tool to connect with other people. Like, I don't want to forget.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I have been through a lot, eating disorder wise, and, growing up in the church and kind of having to navigate, like, what do I actually believe? What is my actual faith? And, working through those issues, as well as just like, what does it mean to be a good person? What does it mean to be someone that you're proud to be? And, it's a lot of work kind of, getting there.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell just from listening to the voicemails that we've played on the podcast, like you just have such a rich history of like understanding this stuff, but also you have the wisdom that comes with, working on it for so long. And that's just such an incredible strength. You might not even realize, but like, I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it's actually become very clear to me just in the last week or so. So I got a new job.
Yes, I was going to ask about that.
Yay!
Yes.
I was hoping they would.
Yes, and so I am going to be a 911 dispatcher in the county I live in, and I am super excited about it, but I cannot tell you how many people, when I've told them the news, are like, oh, that's going to be really stressful. Ooh, that could be really hard on your mental health. And you know what? I mean, I knew it is a stressful job, obviously, but the toll it might take on my mental health literally never crossed my mind until people started bringing it up. And then I'm like, that is maybe a testament to how far I've come. That wasn't like the first thing on my mind of like, oh, is this going to really bring me down?
But you can do hard things. Like, you've proved to yourself and to the world that you can do it.
Yeah.
To yourself. Like, that's the most important thing, that you know that you can do it.
Yes, definitely.
That's fucking badass also.
I cannot wait to get started. Oh my gosh.
When do you start?
I start the second week in October.
Oh, congrats.
Thanks.
Can't wait to hear. Maybe you can come on like a year from now and talk about that.
Yeah, and definitely it's reminded me, when you're younger, like 20s, early 30s, you can get really bogged down when it comes to making life changes because you're scared. You're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is the right thing to do. I hate my job and it is sucking my soul, but at least I know I can do it. Like, I've just learned as I've gotten older, like, take those chances, because what is the worst that's going to happen? Maybe I'll get into this job and it is not for me, or, it is super stressful and I'm not willing to have it take a toll on my mental health. I'll do something else and it will not be the end of the world.
Oh my God, you're speaking to my soul. I've been dealing with this for the last few weeks on the podcast and everyone knows.
I know. I was thinking that. I was like, please take note, Christina.
But I love that I have you both to tell me this stuff, because like it sucks out here when you don't know what you're doing. And yeah, and I just love that you are on to the next thing, and it sounds really exciting, and I'm just really proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm very, very excited about it. I can't wait to get started. I know it's going to be a lot of learning. The training sounds really intense, but very thorough. So it's not like I'm going to have to talk someone through delivering a baby on my first day or something. So I know that, they'll provide me with the tools I need to be good at it. So I'm not too scared about it, and it's mainly just excitement.
Yeah. Super exciting.
Yes, I can't wait.
Do you have anything else you wanted to say before we wrap it up?
Gosh.
Or Lauren, do you have any insights after hearing all this? Because
yeah, I feel like I was trying not to lead things too much because, of course, I know so much of Vikki's history that I was going to be like,
well, what about your perspective? Like, you've been along for this entire story. Like, what's your perspective seeing it up close in real time?
What you talked about kind of near the end, that was my main reason for thinking that you would be a really great guest, because I knew you during that time where you said, like, I just laid on a couch for 1.5 years. And like, I don't always think of it because, of course, it was a gradual change, but I like think of that. And then I think now where I'm just like, yeah, you have a family, you just got a fun sounding new job, you're in your handbell choir,
yes.
you're always going on fun little like weekend trips and everything like that. I'm like, you have a full life, and it's just it's really cool to see that it just, you don't have to make a huge change. Sometimes you don't even know what the change is, but it can happen.
Yeah, a lot of it is definitely just gradual, and then you look back to where you've come from and you're like, holy crap, this is a total change from how things had been previously.
Yeah, and the future is like, it can be exciting. Imagine that.
Definitely. Yeah, now I am at a point in my life where I am freaked out about getting older.
Oh, I'm starting to hit that too.
So I got my hair done yesterday, and prior to that, I had so much gray. And I mean, on the inside, I still feel like I'm in my 20s. And so to acknowledge that I've hit 50, I'm 50.
That's wild. You don't seem like it to me.
50.
I just looked at her shocked because I didn't think that was true.
My mom is 62 and she says she still feels like a teenager. Like, the older I get, age is truly like just a number, as cheesy as that sounds.
It's the craziest thing, though, because I remember, being a teenager and my parents were in their 40s and they were old.
I know.
They were old people in their 40s. And now I think, like, oh my gosh, did they feel young inside too? Like,
everyone is just a child inside. I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to segue, but do you have anywhere you want people to message you, Vikki, if they want to reach out?
Maybe just leave comments on the Instagram. I check those out and leave them frequently, so that would be a good place to do it.
We talk, of course. Pass them on.
Yes.
Yes, we will pass on any messages anyone wants to send to Vikki. You can send it to us on Instagram at Pickles and Vodka Podcast. You can email us at picklesandvodkapodcast@gmail.com and we'll forward them to her. And also, you should just message us anyway, regardless.
Yeah, and if you just like us individually, then, I mean, not saying you want one of us. That sounded so terrible.
Vikki, Lauren has been making the most inappropriate comments on this podcast. So before you came on, you need to rein her in.
I know.
You were doing so good, though.
If you do want to talk to us individually, then our Instagrams are always open. Mine is Pico Suave, Picosauve.
It's her dog, and I am at Xtina Jumper.
It's really me, even though it's my dog.
Well, thank you so much, Vikki. This was great, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, this has been really fun. I feel like with a little bit of pre-planning.
Who needs that?
We could come up with like some really interesting topics to delve into, and I would definitely like to come back.
I am no longer an interviewing virgin.
Oh my God, you did it again! All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.